We are so blessed to know about the great gift that is Radio Maria, and to be able to tune in for our daily prayer or favourite shows, or to send in our intentions for the whole Radio Maria Ireland community to pray for. There are still so many people who haven't yet discovered this gift. Why don't you call a friend or family member today and let them know about Radio Maria?
No, nice simple little jingle. Thanks, Ruth. Thanks, Eva. I love a piece of music there as well. Come Divine Messiah. Very appropriate indeed for the conversation that we are continuing as well. Thanks to Eileen, who was in touch there on the phone. She made the very interesting point indeed that the legalisation of the destruction of the unborn indeed could rightly be said to be unconstitutional, given that our constitution is the preamble, submits all authority and draws all authority from God. That could well be argued. It could certainly be argued from the point of view of faith. I'm no politician and I'm no lawyer, and I leave all of those things to politicians and lawyers, way out of my depth on all of those things. But under God, absolutely. Life itself comes from God. Who the heck do we think we are? I mean, in all fairness, let's be honest. We have no authority over life. It's a gift. We manipulate, biology, but as to the giving of life, what was that lovely scientific discovery? This would be naturally immoral, conceiving life outside its natural moment of conception in a petri dish or in a laboratory. But that, scientists have noticed a kind of a flash of light or energy at the time the sperm and the ovum unite, and cannot explain it or don't know what it is or can. And we who have of faith and believe in all these things and believe in the sanctity of life from the first moment of conception have no difficulty in applying that to God's life-giving gift right there, and the infusion of the soul easily. Our preamble, and of course there are many, or some at least, who would rather see that preamble removed from our Constitution. It's a very beautiful passage in honour of the Holy Trinity, actually, from whom all authority comes, of state and otherwise. It's quite a lovely passage, composed by those who drafted our Constitution in faith. Extraordinary. So that's a fair comment, Eileen, indeed, and one for somebody with a bit more legal expertise than that to work through fully. Which is why, and I might just put this, I've mentioned this idea before, we who are of goodwill and of faith and see and acknowledge the sanctity of life in the womb, and all these other good questions, and who do so much for the state, I might add. I mean, it is another ray of hope and of light that the church and we, people of faith, are the ones who tend to be, I hope, more honest, who pay their taxes and who keep the law and who respect civil authority and seek to support the work of the state. They're the sort of people who volunteer for boards of management in schools all over the country. There's an army of volunteer activity doing tremendous good in so many ways, and the church is a huge instrument for good because of our faith and because we respect the sanctity of life, and will always be there even for those who drift astray and who come back again and rediscover the path to truth. The church will always be there and has always been there and will never be not there. In spite of the worst of persecution, the faith will continue. The Holy Spirit has promised that. So we have to look upon the great good indeed that has been done. And so my point that I was coming to was, all of this means that none of us can be kind of inert or inactive or passive in relation to these deep and profound moral questions. So we all have a part to play. Now again, like I say, it mightn't be out there in the front with your head above the parapet waiting to get a reaction. Some people do that, and some people, are into the kind of protesting and the placards and all of that. And perhaps there's a place for that too. I prefer a more gentle, reasoned and heartfelt approach, a kind of long term, and again in the light of faith, that you sort of work your way through and to me it seems a bit more organic, or at least a way of journeying with people to bring them more into the light. I mean, I'm on the journey myself. We're on the journey further into the light that is Christ. And that's the good news of Christmas. O come, divine Messiah, O bearer of peace, of light, of truth. And recognizing that we are all on this journey together. Eamonn just sent in a message too. He says, you're on fire. Is this the only voice in the wilderness? There's plenty of others too. I know there's wonderful other pro-life. It's where I'm drawing some of my information from there with messages that come in. I'm connected in with some of these wonderful pro-life warriors and groups that are there. It's good. And this is, again, part of my small gesture of not being inactive or inert or passive, but in some way bringing this to the light and supporting these good people who are, I suppose, in a way, in the front lines with the debate and with the political interaction that's necessary. It's a healthy thing. It's a necessary part of our society. And if it's going to be democratic or professes to be so, there needs to be that opportunity to engage with both sides of every question and argument. Ours, from the faith perspective, is not a Radio Maria perspective. We are not political agitators. We seek to be politically sort of, I would say inactive, but because we're addressing all the questions, certainly the moral questions, in the light of faith. But we have nothing to do with, we're not advocating any political side or party. That's because the minute you do that, it becomes divisive. And that's our role is from the point of view of faith. Again, Our Lady at the Cross, she had every reason to get political and condemn the Roman soldiers or condemn the high priest, the church, or the apostles. She had but that's not the church. That's not the church's role. And it's written into scriptures, that we support the state, but certainly don't condone immorality in that which we see as actually running against the good of the state and the common good, let's say. So it's important to be in some way vocal or some way articulate about it, but again with the right degree of the right approach. And again, just dwelling on the great good that's being done by the Church for the poor, and so many people of good faith who are involved in a zillion different absolutely terrific charities and movements, because they may be overtly or not so overtly, whatever what's the opposite to that, but animated by faith. You see, faith can stimulate us to respond to charitable needs around us. And some have different gifts and different talents. Some like to go out and do, say, a soup run, or, talking to the homeless on the street. Others work in hostels for the homeless. Others do Meals on Wheels. I don't know. Others are involved in daycare and these sort of facilities. Random things coming out. Others run charity shops. And there's just so many ways of approaching the needy and the poor. And many people, and like I say, other people volunteer for things like boards of management and all these other wonderful tidy towns. Just random things coming into my head there. These all build up the community. And very often you'll find, that these people are people of goodwill. They might not always be animated by faith, but underneath it all, there's a sense of seeking to do the good, the common good. That is so noble and so admirable, and I encourage that from a height. I used to say that, if you remember, to students in school, secondary, leaving cert students, whatever you do, get involved, do something for charity, anything. Get stuck in, do something to build up. Don't do nothing. To build up life. Build up life. And that's in the fullest sense of that. Let us not be accused of being pro-life and not pro-life, of advocating for these very grave issues on the one hand, and resolution there and truth there, and then doing nothing about the poor or the homeless or the lonely or the let's be across and it's a fair criticism, and that's something we should rise toward. But let us play our part. So now the Advent season moves on. We're into the 17th of December. This is the final week octave. And you'll see just a little quote for you before we finish about the readings at Holy Mass, just animating us towards the birth of Christ. That the two series of readings, we've had those up now until the 16th of December, where the Gospel passage is chosen in relation to a selected passage from Isaiah. We've been chatting all about those through the weekdays then, of up to the 16th. And Thursday of the second week, again, it's the same form each year. The Gospel passages are about St. John the Baptist, and the first reading then is a continuation of Isaiah, or a text chosen in view of the Gospel. But from the 17th and from today, Gospel passages are chosen about the events that immediately prepared for the birth of Christ. So we're getting really close to the edge, as it were, now, the real coming of Christ. And the first readings then are from different books of the Old Testament. We had Book of Genesis this morning in view of the Gospel readings, and include the most important messianic prophecies that Christ is descended from King David today, from Solomon, right back indeed to Abraham. So very important. And so it just fine-tunes and focuses our attention as we journey towards the coming of Christ, to see that He is Emmanuel, God with us. And thank God for Jesus Christ, because He lifts us out of the darkness. He really does. And points the way to light, to hope. And our faith in Him means it enhances our great love for one another, and the dignity and beauty and sanctity of life at all its stages. So rather than be in any way downcast, as I say, let it energize us to continue on the path of good, to continue on the path of life, of hope, of love, even for those who are lost or in darkness or misguided or misdirected. These are the sheep that Christ has come to draw back into the fold. Let us look at it very positively in that way. There's much work to be done. We have a part to play, and animated by Christ and strengthened by our faith, we too can reach out to bring all back to Him, the way, the truth, and the life. Amen. Now our time has gone. It's just coming up to 12 o'clock. Thank you for being with me. We'll pause now for our Angelus and midday prayer.